For many of us, the Pokémon franchise is a nostalgic, heartwarming memory of our first intrepid steps into RPG gaming, if not our first experience of video games full stop. Whether you're a fan of the series or not, it's certainly difficult to look at Pikachu's shimmering doe eyes without feeling that fuzzy-wuzzy sense of comfort. After all, even though there are numerous titles within the core series, the franchise generally follows the same formula throughout each installment. There may be a few graphical differences, new elemental types, or generation-specific battle mechanics, but the Pokémon series always provides warmth and comforting wistfulness. On the surface, of course. Beneath the jolly facade has always dwelled an uneasy sense of horror and dread throughout the series. Don't believe us? Well, take a peek into the Pokédex and witness creepy tales that even put the likes of Stephen King to shame. So, keep the lights on, check under the bed for any lurking Gengars, and try not to pay attention to the Lavender Town music drifting down from the attic, because I'm Ben from TripleJump, and here are 10 Pokédex entries that will give you nightmares. Number 10. Parasect. Among so many other unnerving Pokédex entries, the one for Parasect really stands out for its uncanny ability to strike unease in even the most hardened Pokémon trainer. At first glance, this creature appears to be a simple, goofy-eyed bug with a snazzy mushroom backpack. Hey, Bulbasaur has the foliage and bulb on its back, and that little guy is all kinds of cute, so what makes Parasect so different? Well, the mushroom isn't just a fashion statement or evolutionary form of camouflage. As Pokemon Yellow's Pokédex reveals, the bug host is drained of energy by the mushroom on its back. They appear to do all the thinking. Turns out that the insectoid Pokémon has been completely overtaken by the parasitic mushroom on its back. The insect beneath the insidious fungus was completely drained of nutrients before being possessed by the fully grown Tochukaso mushroom, thereby acting in a manner similar to the horrific Cordyceps fungus. Forget The Last of Us. Pokemon did it first. And you know what? If this thing starts clicking, I'm out of here, alright? Number 9. Sliggoo. Don't be fooled by the hapless grin and lilac colour palette. Pokemon Sun notes that this melty monstrosity has trouble drawing a line between friends and food. It will calmly try to melt and eat even those who get along well with it. Lovely. So basically, Sliggoo doesn't even feel any regret about liquefying your innards in a manner similar to that of a Goliath bird-eater spider. Personally, being melted alive is not on my top 10 ways to die, but that's a list for another day. Pokemon Moon's Pokédex kindly reminds us that this Pokemon's mucus can dissolve anything. Toothless, it sprays mucus on its prey. Once they're nicely dissolved, it slurps them up. This franchise usually encourages the notion that your Poké-team are your allies, with some titles introducing a friendship mechanic to build the bond between you and your team. Yet this Pokemon flies in the face of all that. If you try to befriend this strange excuse for a dragon Pokemon, consolations go out to our flying and fire-type brethren Charizard, it's going to melt your face off. And it's going to smile while it does it. Number 8. Frostlas. Game Freak has drawn upon many instances of Japanese folklore when cultivating ideas for their ghost-type Pokémon. The tales serve as fantastic foundations for creepy backstories and clever visual storytelling when it comes to the designs and Pokédex entries for these mons. Frostlas is a perfectly eerie example of how local legends can leap from spooky stories told by moonlight to effective creature design. Heart Gold and Soul Silver tell us legends in snowy regions say that a woman who was lost on an icy mountain was reborn as Frostlas. Or is it Frostlas? I don't know. This profile subtly reveals that she's actually based on a Yuki Onna, which in many regional variants is a female creature who often approaches travelers and begs them to hold her frozen baby, but upon doing so, the travelers would feel their limbs dragged down by an unearthly weight before succumbing to an icy death. This tragic yokai has been known to feed on her victims' life force or to freeze them via her glacial breath. So Frostlas isn't exactly horrifyingly monstrous. Instead, she's both sorrowful and vengeful, bewitching and haunting, which is a bit too super effective for any ghost-type Pokemon, really. Number 7. Palossand. The original Japanese name for this Pokemon really hints at the creepy vibe that Game Freak was going for. Zero Deathner is a delightful combo of castle, sand, and death. It may look like something your annoying cousins threw together during a family trip to the seaside, but it's actually made up of the dried up bones of its victims after it drained them of their vitality. The Pokédex entry for the Sun installment gladly informs us that possessed people controlled by this Pokémon transformed its sand mound into a castle. As it evolved, its power to curse grew even stronger. So, it can use unsuspecting trainers to do its bidding, thereby amassing more victims and constructing an even bigger structure of malicious doom. But the horror doesn't stop there. Each Pokédex entry builds on Palossand's lore, further adding to the unearthly horror with more tales of unsettling terror. Pokémon Sword graciously tells us that Palossand is known as the Beach Nightmare. It pulls its prey down into the sand by controlling the sand itself, and then it sucks out their souls. That's death by suffocation beneath sand. Pretty gritty for a game aimed at children. Number 6. Cubone. Not only did the first generation of Pokémon games cement the formula for the countless games that came after it, but it also wove some haunting tales into its establishing lore. Although this tragic tale began way back during the days of Pokémon Red, Green, Blue, and Yellow, the heart-wrenching tale still lives on in the likes of Ruby and Sapphire, wherein we are told that it pines for the mother it will never see again. Seeing a likeness of its mother in the full moon, it cries. The stains on the skull it wears are from tears. It wears its mother's skull, never revealing its true face. But considering every Cubone we see always has this mask, does this simply imply that every single mother is destined to perish? It's a horrible thought, isn't it? Granted, this entry isn't exactly scary, but it is nightmare-worthy. Imagine losing a parent, then, in your insurmountable grief, deciding to wear their face. See what I mean? Okay, the skull helmet looks quite cool, especially when we get to the likes of a Alolan Marowak, but Ed Gein had a penchant for keeping real skulls too, so be careful. Number 5. Mawile. For anyone unfamiliar with the folklore behind Mawile's design, this creature may seem savage, but not exactly the spine-tingling type of creepiness that lends itself to evocative lingering in one's mind. Ultra Sun notes that a cunning and terrifying Pokémon, its cuteness makes opponents let down their guard, and then it swallows them whole with its huge jaws. Alright, that's definitely quite terrifying, especially when juxtaposed with its cute little face and half-fairy classification. However, take another look at the Pokédex entry after we tell you a little more about Futakuchi Onna, the inspiration behind Mawile's lore and strange aesthetic. This cursed creature is a woman inflicted with a supernatural disease that causes a ravenous maw to erupt from the back of her skull. The beast has an insatiable appetite that is combined with impressive supernatural strength. So we've got a beautiful woman combined with dozens of razor-sharp teeth thrusting from her head. Beauty and violence, hence the fairy and steel type combo. Other Pokédex entries reference how Mawile also likes to rip and tear her prey asunder, leading to a more monstrous nature than most other Pokémon in this massive generation-spanning lineup. Just don't get too close when you're playing with Mawile during friendship minigames. She'll take your whole arm off. Number 4. Yamask. Oh yeah, a ghost-type Pokémon is spooky. That's not exactly a profound observation, we know that, but some stand out because they are so, well, haunting. Yamask, although seemingly simple in its design, actually embodies an eerie ambiance due to its relationship with death, a hopeless afterlife, and loss of identity. Pokémon Y's Pokédex explains that each of them carries a mask that used to be its face when it was human. Sometimes they look at it and cry. And Pokémon Shield highlights with the Galarian variant, it rambles through ruins searching for someone who knows its face. Yeah, it used to be human. This is yet another sly snippet of lore that implies a direct link between the spirits of Pokémon and humans. There are several instances of this throughout the series, but it's brushed over for the most part. Essentially, Game Freak is suggesting that tortured human souls can manifest as lost Pokémon, thereby destined to wander and suffer in the next life with only a mask created out of their own face for comfort. It's the gravity of Yamask's Pokédex entry that really keeps us up at night, which may not be a bad thing when we consider the next entry. Number 3. Drowzee. We're back at Generation 1 again with yet more nightmare fuel. You know what? Everyone shouts about this being the best gen in the series, but it definitely has some of the most unsettling backstories. From the hauntings at Lavender Town to the Pokémon cloning experiments, it's definitely not for the faint of heart. There's tragedy around every corner, and don't even think that hiding under your bed covers will keep the boogeyman away in this universe. Based on a Baku, Drowzee actively preys on children, because as Pokémon Silver notes, children's dreams are much tastier. Yeah, this thing preys on kids during their most vulnerable state. when they're sleeping. It's Pokemon's version of Freddy Krueger, essentially. With a moveset including Dream Eater, Hypnosis, and Nasty Plot, you can't convince me that Drowzee isn't malicious. It devours your good dreams and leaves the bad ones behind because nightmares make it feel nauseous. Seriously, anything with a tendency to creep into your room and steal your dreams gets a no from me. Things don't get any better when it evolves into Hypno either, judging from that in-universe tale of a Hypno abducting a child. Number 2. Mimikyu. Since the Pokemon community glimpsed Mimikyu's lopsided appearance, it's gained a massive following, and it's not hard to see why. The poor little chap wears a sad Pikachu costume and it just wants to be loved and accepted. And yet the Pokédex paints a tale of tragedy and eldritch horror, with many Pokédex entries referring to both its disguised and busted forms. It may be cute on the outside, but beneath the Pikachu cosplay lurks something dark and ancient. Pokemon Sun tells of how a scholar who saw what was under the shroud was overwhelmed by terror and died from shock. It's seemingly based on the Breton myth of Bugol Noz, which is essentially a fairy creature that is so ugly that anyone who's seen his true visage will instantly cease living through sheer terror. Once again, this is a story of suffering and tragedy, combined with the looming threat of death. Okay, but that's not Mimikyu's fault, right? Well, Ultramoon unfortunately notes that, sad that its true identity may be exposed, Mimikyu will mercilessly seek revenge on any opponent that breaks its neck. Emphasis on mercilessly. Number 1. Driftloom. You may be surprised by Driftloom being at number 1, but consider what things really creep you out. It's probably not the excessive, hulking monster designs. Unsettling, eerie, beguiling concepts tend to creep into our nightmares and linger in our subconscious. For this reason, we reckon that Driftloom, a seemingly adorable little sprite with a predatory nature, deserves top spot on this list. Pokemon Sun tells us that it grabs the hands of small children and drags them to the afterlife. It dislikes heavy children. Anything that preys on kids is definite nightmare fuel in our opinion. However, after examining the Pokédex entries, we can't fully determine what Driftloom does with the children after abducting them. All we know is that those kids aren't seen again. Oh, but Pokemon Moon's Pokédex did observe that if for some reason its body bursts, its soul spills out with a screaming sound. That doesn't bode well. It's a silent stalker that quietly leads kids away. Its mouth seems to be taped up, yet its overall appearance seems to be designed to make children feel at ease. It may be the cutest accomplice of Pennywise we've ever seen. Be careful, Ash, or you'll float too. And that's our list. The monster part of Pocket Monsters really makes sense now that I think about it, but which Pokédex entries of Pokémon origin stories make you want to select Run instead of Fight? Head down to the safety of the comments section and let us know. We promise it's not haunted. You can follow myself and TripleJump on Twitter here, and while you're at it, why not support the things you enjoy by having a look at our Patreon? Finally, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. I'm Ben from TripleJump, and thanks for watching.